What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, October 6, 2020, getting into the week here. We have a lot to go through in terms of news, and then we'll open the phone lines for your comments, questions, opinions, and observations. Mike is in our control room again today, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. So let's get right on into it. After returning to the White House, Trump made a statement imploring Americans not to let COVID-19 dominate your life or to beat you, basically saying you shouldn't be scared of it. And he's taking the position now that he's more of an expert on COVID-19 now that he personally has had it. Now, interestingly enough, out in Hollywood, a whole bunch of celebrities there had this meltdown over Donald Trump leaving Walter Reed Military Hospital. These are the same people who are out there tweeting that he hoped he died and he was going to be there until after the election. And at the center of Hollywood's temper tantrum was the president's advice: don't be afraid of COVID, don't let it dominate your life. And it set off this freak out where celebrities were launching social media attacks at the president and even his medical team, spreading conspiracy theories and wild accusations intended to hurt Trump. NBC's community actor Ken Jeong, who's also a medical doctor, said, "You're faking your recovery. And the president's doctors are lying for a mass murderer." This was from Animal Kingdom actress Ellen Barkin. And finally, Captain America star Chris Evans tweeted, "This is reckless to a shocking degree, even for you." So, boy, the venom is definitely flowing out there. But on the other hand, why should we pay attention to their actions, right? Okay. Now, Joe Biden is out there leading critics, accusing Trump of still downplaying COVID as he took his mask off, as he got up on the balcony at the White House and he took his mask off and told the U.S., don't be afraid. And Biden said, what is this macho thing here? So anyway, Trump is going to remain on steroids. He's going to have his fifth and final dose of remdesivir tonight. Doctors insist his top-notch treatment will continue inside the White House rather than the Walter Reed Hospital. Okay, now, almost as soon as the president came home, the campaign released a parody video of the president dodging what appeared to be coronavirus before scoring a touchdown shortly after he was released from the hospital to finish his COVID-19 treatment at the White House. And apparently, social media companies are trying to kill this one, because it's apparently very, very funny, but I went to a couple of places that supposedly had it and violates our community standards and all the rest of that stuff here. Meanwhile, of course, speculation continues to mount about just where President Trump was exposed to COVID-19. And I'm sure the events of the last week are to be studied for a very long time, and a lot of information remains unknown. In the early morning of Friday, October 2nd, President Trump tweeted that he and the First Lady had tested positive for COVID. We're now aware that they knew that Thursday and simply delayed admitting it to the public. And then, of course, Friday night, he checked into Walter Reed National Medical Center for treatment. And at that point, speculation began about what was going on. Now, Donald Trump is back at the White House. He's doing work. He's apparently doing work in one of the diplomat meeting rooms because the West Wing and Oval Office are being sanitized right now. They've got crews in there in hazmat suits, just absolutely sterilizing the entire places. And they're dealing with a cluster of staff and reporters who've tested positive for COVID-19. Now, a lot of people were screaming about Donald Trump's, first of all, his little motorcade around Walter Reed to greet his supporters, and second, simply going back to the White House, exposing the Secret Service to COVID-19. So CNN tried to have a former White House physician condemn President Donald Trump's Sunday drive-by to thank his supporters. And Dr. William Lang said, there was nothing to criticize. It was a very, very small risk. Remember, that tank, that presidential limousine, is actually airtight. In case there's a gas tank, it's got its own air system on board. It's like a little spacecraft on wheels, really. Okay, so anyway, apparently Washington Post blogger Jennifer Rubin has been taken to the woodshed online after calling Walter Reed Medical Center a public health hazard and calling for its budget to be slashed following Trump's stay there. Now, this self-ordained never-Trump pro-democracy opinionator took calls to defund public institutions to another level on Monday, urging Congress to slash Walter Reed's budget for reasons left unstated, presumably something to do with the president, who was discharged from the medical center later that day after spending the weekend there. So Rubin declared from her perch on Twitter, Congress might want to defund Walter Reed. It is a public health hazard. Now, over at Facebook, we know that Facebook has been censoring conservative content and everything. Oddly enough, Facebook says wishing President Trump's death is okay, as long as he's not tagged. Little differentiation there. So Facebook says users can wish President Trump death from coronavirus as long as they don't tag him, which is kind of weird. All right, getting into the general wider area of our politics here. Ginsburg's nightmare, the Democratic plan to destroy the Supreme Court of the United States. Well, what the plan is they want to add a whole new bunch of justices. So they're going to go from 9 to, I think the target number is 15, and then have the additional 6 all be liberal judges in order to take back the majority from the conservatives. And of course, this is something that Ginsburg expressly denounced, you know, for the Supreme Court. It would definitely muck up the operation there. Okay, story coming out of Investment Watch blog. And apparently there has been some more declassified information linking Hillary Clinton to Russiagate. And apparently the Trump-Russia smears were made up by Hillary Clinton to distract the Department of Justice from her email server scandal. And it worked. They dropped the investigation into her private use of an email server, even though it is a violation of Title 18. Now, according to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, the FBI did not probe the claim that Clinton ordered Russiagate because it was part of the plot. The U.S. Director of National Intelligence has released a Russia intel report dated July of 2016 that claimed then presidential candidate Hillary Clinton had approved a plan to stir up a scandal against Donald Trump by linking him to Moscow and Russian hacking of the DNC in order to distract the public from her use of a private email server. Sputnik spoke to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, an American economist and former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Ronald Reagan, in order to discuss the revelations made by John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence, about the 2016 election campaign in the United States, the so-called Russiagate conspiracy, the ongoing attacks on President Donald Trump, and more. All righty. Now, after recovering from the coronavirus, Trump has now ordered the Obama administration spy records to be totally declassified. Now, he's going to run head-on into Gina Haspel over at CIA, who is blocking the release of any documents from CIA related to this scandal. Article coming out of Blabberbuzz. October surprise. Swing state suburban women are rallying towards Trump. Okay, apparently we're having an issue with YouTube. Well, that's why we need donations from all of you to keep all of this stuff running here. Anyway, swing state suburban women are rallying towards Trump, and basically they're talking about how the women in the swing states are saying they don't believe anymore the corporate media reports about the polls favoring Joe Biden. Well, we've already reported that the reason the corporate media polls seem to favor Joe Biden is they're oversampling Democrats. They're talking to far more Democrats than Republicans. So, of course, they're getting the numbers they want to have. But according to a new poll that was a little more fair and balanced, Trump is beating Biden nationally. He's ahead of Biden in 7 battleground states. Now, of course, they're going to insist that's not true because they can't have Trump leading in the polls and then try and steal the election from him. Everybody's going to know what happened. Well, we're all going to know what happened anyway. They've made it very, very obvious. Apparently, the corporate media is now attacking Project Veritas, saying that they made up all this stuff about ballot harvesting and Ilhan Omar, and that they paid the guy in the video $10,000 to lie. Project Veritas, of course, is denying. But then we expect nothing but lies from the corporate media these days. And the majority of the American people no longer trust them. Down in Texas, a police officer, Sean Lucas of the Wolf City Police Department, shot a black man at a gas station. And it was a horrible tragedy because the man in question was trying to stop a fight between two other people. And the officer basically shot and killed him. He's been arrested. He's being charged. His bond is set at $1 million, according to the Texas Rangers. All righty, over in Pennsylvania, the police are still abusing asset forfeiture to help themselves to people's cash. And asset forfeiture remains one of the most abused law enforcement practices in the country. There have been some attempts made to rein in the abuse, but in most locales, it's just considered a useful law enforcement tool with minimal downsides. Pennsylvania has seen some of the worst asset forfeiture laws in the nation. And I remember this scandal was first brought to public light by the Philadelphia Inquirer. They were saying, and this was like years ago, that they were saying this is completely out of control. Law enforcement has occasionally been bench slapped by judges for traveling past the wide boundaries granted to it by local legislators. In one case, a judge stopped the state from seizing a grandmother's house just because her son sold officers $140 worth of marijuana from the residence. I mean, there have been cases where houses have been seized for as little as finding a few seeds. In another case, a judge excoriated officers for stripping a house of everything with possible resale value under the pretense that anything of value in it must have been purchased with drug money. It is really, really out of control. I remember a case when I was still living in California where the police departments were literally looking at properties and judging them for their resale value and starting to target very expensive properties and the people who own them in the hope that they could find some reason to confiscate them and sell them to boost their budgets. And there was this plot of land out in Malibu, and they insisted that they were growing marijuana on this land, and they raided the place, and in the process, the homeowner was shot and killed. And it turned out there was no marijuana anywhere on the property. So this is not law enforcement. This is pillaging. This is Sir Guy of Gisborne's tax collectors running rampant across the country, stealing pigs and chickens. That's what this is here. All right, let's talk about COVID-19. It's certainly in the news now following Trump's treatment, and looks like he's on his way to recovery. Over in Paris, drinkers enjoy one last beer as the shutters come down on Paris bars for at least 2 more weeks due to the COVID-19. Over in China, the attitude seems to be virus, what virus? Chinese tourist attractions are swamped by hordes of people as travelers snub social distancing rules to enjoy a national holiday. Now, over at the CDC, they're flip-flopping back and forth. In fact, they're starting to flip-flop like a beached trout. Remember a few weeks ago, they said that coronavirus was airborne. Then they came back the next day and said, well, that was in error. It's not airborne. Now they're saying that coronavirus is spread through aerosolized respiratory droplets that linger in the air. So we're back to that being airborne again. CDC has also admitted that coronavirus can travel much further than just 6 feet, which we reported months ago. Anyway. All right, so President Trump's improving health suggests the virus is now one we can handle. So you have Harvard, Stanford, and Oxford epidemiologists who've launched a petition for an end to lockdowns and targeted protections signed by over 1,700 medical professionals. All right, let's talk about the international news here. The death toll rises in Nagorno-Karabakh. Heavy fighting continues in the disputed region between Armenian forces and Azerbaijan as both sides accuse one another of attacking civilian areas. On Monday, yesterday, Armenian military officials accused Azerbaijan of shelling Stepanakert, the capital of Nagorno-Karabakh. Azeri officials accused Armenia of attacking several towns on Monday, including two major cities, Ganja and Mingachevir, which were first hit on Sunday. Around 250 people have been reported killed in the fighting, but the real number is expected to be much higher since Azerbaijan has not disclosed military casualties. Apparently, Azerbaijan has confirmed they are using Turkish armed drones against Armenia. And it's basically against Armenian targets, again in Nagorno-Karabakh. And Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev said, thanks to advanced Turkish drones owned by the Azerbaijan military, our casualties on the front shrunk. These drones show Turkey's strength. It also empowers us. Now, the Armenian prime minister is urging army veterans to re-enlist to fight against Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. He's described it as a fight of life and death. So he's asking ex-soldiers discharged during the last 12 months to take up arms again. He said, I want to appeal to our guys discharged over the past year, come to the Central Military Recruitment Office and enroll in the Army. He explained that Armenian law doesn't allow for this category of former soldiers to be mobilized and asked them to come instead as volunteers. Now, as the battle rages on, Armenia wants Washington to explain if it supplied Turkey with F-16s to aid Azerbaijan. Armenia's prime minister wants clarification from the U.S. about the sale of F-16s to Turkey, claiming the advanced jets are bombing civilians amid the battle with Azerbaijan over the contested Nagorno-Karabakh. Turkey and Azerbaijan strongly denied the claims, but the rebuttals have not prevented Armenia from raising the issue of Ankara's perceived involvement in the Nagorno-Karabakh fighting with its major NATO ally, the United States. Last Thursday, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan held a telephone conversation with U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, according to the New York Times. Washington needs to explain whether it gave those F-16s to bomb peaceful villages and peaceful populations, Pashinyan told the Times. Okay. Now, Ajlan al-Ajlan, the head of Saudi Arabia's Chamber of Commerce, declared in a statement this weekend that a full boycott of all Turkish products was the responsibility of every Saudi. We reported just yesterday where Turkish products are being boycotted around the world because of Turkey's bad habit of just causing trouble all over the place here. Tensions between Turkey and Saudi Arabia have remained high since the killing of columnist Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018. Turkish President Erdogan, under whose command Turkey has become the world's most prolific jailer of journalists after China, used Khashoggi's killing at the hands of Saudi agents to declare himself a friend of the free press and demonize Riyadh, suggesting that the homicide was a direct order from the highest levels of the Saudi government, meaning Mohammed bin Salman. Okay, another article. This one is coming from Balkan Insight. Serbia is playing with fire, delivering arms to Armenia. And it starts out saying this July, the frozen conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia started to thaw as fighting broke out between Azerbaijan and Armenian forces. Azerbaijani troops found ammunition and shells produced in Serbia among their Armenian adversaries. This discovery not only shook the strategic partnership between Serbia and Azerbaijan, the biggest danger for Serbia was it also risked upsetting both great and regional powers with interests in the Caucasus conflict. Now, as we've already reported, Serbian fighters, Serbian jihadists are joining in to the fight there. And the war in Nagorno-Karabakh is becoming increasingly internationalized as foreigners are arriving to fight on both sides of the conflict. Nagorno-Karabakh, despite being internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, has had a de facto independence since 1994, when Armenian forces won a decisive victory. On September 25th, it was first revealed Syrian militants were being transferred to Azerbaijan via Turkey. All right, we got to take a break for commercial, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here, getting on with the news. Oman becomes the first Gulf state to reinstate their ambassador in Syria. Oman has sent an ambassador to Syria, becoming the first Arab Gulf state to do so after they downgraded or shut their missions in Damascus in 2012 over the government's brutal response to protests at the start of what turned into a war. Oman is one of the rare Arab countries that maintained diplomatic relations with the Syrian government of President Bashar al-Assad after the 2011 uprising, despite pressure from the United States and other Gulf allies. Now, Iran, normally a peaceful country, is starting to talk tough with the United Arab Emirates and Israel. Apparently at issue are 3 disputed islands in the Gulf. And recall that following last month's historic UAE-Israeli peace deal, which marked the first time in history Israel inked a peace deal to open formal diplomatic relations with an Arab Gulf state, Iran angrily reacted by telling UAE it's now made itself a target in response to any future Israeli aggression. Iran interpreted the White House brokered agreement as yet more bolstering of what was already an increasing Gulf Sunni and Israeli alliance to break the so-called Shia Crescent, which is largely what regime change efforts targeting Syria's Assad were all about. All right, thousands have been displaced as Yemen's fighting centers on the Ma'arib province. A lot of the ongoing Yemen war hasn't seen much displacement in recent years. The same towns tend to be constantly contested, and the people there fled long ago to safer areas to the extent anywhere in Yemen is truly safe. But recent pushes into Ma'arib province by the Houthis have caused a lot of displacement, with a refugee camp of about 1,500 families forming overnight. That camp has had to move 3 times in just the past couple of weeks as they fled the same way the fighting is going. The Houthis have designs on the oil-producing parts of Ma'arib, which are valuable to the extent anything in Yemen is, though their production is still very minor in the grand scheme of things. Now, interesting little story here, where it says that if Biden is elected president, he will end U.S. support for the Yemen war. And I think probably a lot of us would like to see that happen. It's not exactly a high point in America's honor, as it were. But Joe Biden has pledged to end his country's support for Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen if he becomes president. Not sure if I believe that, but he's saying the nice things here. Under a Biden-Harris administration, we will reassess our relationship with the Saudi Arabia kingdom, end U.S. support for Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen, and make sure America does not check its values at the door to sell arms or buy oil. Yeah, it's a good thing to say during a presidential campaign. I am really not sure that I trust him. Okay, now then. Israel constantly meddled in Yemen's internal affairs under the slain dictator, according to an army spokesman. A spokesman for Yemeni Armed Forces, Brigadier General Yahya Saree, says Israel constantly intervened in the internal affairs of the Arab country during the reign of slain dictator Ali Abdullah Saleh. Speaking at a press conference broadcast live from the capital Sana'a on Sunday evening, Saree highlighted that the Yemeni nation is confronting a Saudi-led military aggression which seeks to accomplish the desired objectives of the Tel Aviv regime. He said Yemen has long been the main target of U.S.-Israeli plots, and the ongoing onslaught clearly proves this. The armed forces call upon Yemenis from all walks of life to raise their awareness about the real intentions of foreigners. Our struggle is nothing but a faithful battle for liberation and independence. Okay. Now, the U.S., Morocco, and Tunisia have signed a 10-year military accord continuing their alliance. On Friday, last Friday, Defense Secretary Mark Esper concluded a fruitful trip to North Africa where he renewed U.S. bilateral military cooperation with Morocco and Tunisia. The renewed arrangements with the 2 North African countries will run through 2030. The American support will help protect them from lawlessness in Libya and Sahel. Libya borders Tunisia to the southeast, and Sahel borders Morocco to the south. The U.S. and Tunisia have maintained close relations. The American military has provided Tunisian military members with training and helped it in securing its border with Libya. A joint U.S.-German venture in Tunisia has implemented an electronic surveillance program to secure the border. Since the beginning of the 2011 Libyan civil war, violence has spilled over into Tunisian territory. In particular, 2 attacks in November 2015 killed over 60 tourists. Later that year, a bomb targeting a bus of presidential security guards killed 12. All righty. Now, over in Kyrgyzstan, the Central Election Commission is announcing new elections within 14 days. As we reported earlier, they've had huge protests there. And, these mass protests after preliminary results of Sunday's parliamentary election. And apparently people believe the elections were being rigged. They even broke into where the parliament sits and caused a great bit of damage. Okay. We're coming up here on another commercial break, and when we come on back, we're going to have more news and some phone calls. We'll be right back after these news. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the telephones to Don in Arizona. Hello, Don. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Well, Mike, yesterday, and I think the day before, you were talking about they're now investigating, Durham, I think, is investigating the Clinton Foundation.
Yes.
The mistakes and the
I don't know that
illegalities.
it's Durham. I'm just aware that there is a criminal investigation into the Clinton Foundation. I don't know that it's Durham.
Well, I think it is Durham. I think I
Okay.
saw that somewhere. But where you can, one guy that's done a lot of work on this is Charles Ortel.
Yes.
He's done a whole lot of shows with Jason Goodman. You can go to the Jason Goodman channel on YouTube, and I'm looking at it now. There's 268 videos that he did with Charles Ortel, and I watched many of those, and almost every single one of them is about what he would do is prepare some material. He would actually look at the financial statements from the Clinton Foundation and just show, because Charles Ortel used to do that for a living. He worked with nonprofits and all. He knew all the laws. He knows all the laws about nonprofits, and that's what he did for years. And he knows what's legal and what's not legal. And he would look at all these financial statements. One thing, and I watched a lot of them, but you can look at it. It's 268 videos, about 2 hours a piece. So that's over 500 hours of videos. And one thing he said. In the process of doing all this, he said, the reason we're recording all this, one reason is in case they ever want to investigate, all they got to do is look at this YouTube channel, and they got all the information. He's already done all the work for them.
Yes.
And there's other people who have also written books. Peter Schweitzer wrote The Clinton Cash and stuff. Clinton Cash.
Yes.
But one thing I remember, one thing that he did that was against the law, when they built the Clinton. The Clinton Library in Little Rock, Arkansas. Clinton put a big condo on the top floor of that for him to live in when he was in Little Rock. Well, that's against the law. You can't nonprofit. You can't build a house. Basically, he's building a house with the nonprofit. That's illegal. And basically, the main thing they did that was illegal, they would change the name of the organization. They'd move around a lot. They were in Arkansas. They were in Massachusetts. They were in India, they were in Ethiopia, all these different places. And every time they moved, they changed the name of it a little bit. And that was basically a way where they could just siphon off some of the cash out of there. And Charles Ortel went into great detail. I mean, it's almost boring unless you happen to be able to look at financial statements and kind of keep up with it and stuff. But I mean, that's all he did for these 500 hours on YouTube. I mean, also they talked about other stuff also, but it's all on here on YouTube. So if anybody wants to look it up, look at some of these videos here. There's five. I mean, you could take a year to watch them all. I mean, this is several years of doing this. Now, also, I wanted to comment a little bit on COVID. As far as masks, there's a book called The Case Against Masks. A Case Against Masks, and you can buy it from Amazon for about $7. It's an 80-page book, and it'll tell you why masks are no good. The main reason is you're supposed to be breathing oxygen, not carbon dioxide. And the mask, if whatever it traps is going to stay there on the mask. It doesn't go anywhere. It's on. And then that mask is basically contaminated, and your hand is going to touch that mask, and so you didn't go anywhere. You didn't gain anything by putting whatever droplets that you might have captured from somebody. In other words, and what you said a little while ago is true. It's not the air; it's the droplets. If somebody sneezes on you, in other words, or coughs on you, and you get some snot on you, then that would transport the virus. But the virus, if they cough on your mask, it's going to stay there, and then that damn mask becomes a toxic, like a petri dish. It just traps everything, traps your breath.
Well, one of the things that bothers me is I see these masks literally being thrown on the ground, by people who come out of a store or something. They just take them off and they just toss them on the ground.
Nobody's trained on what a mask is. They just heard that you're supposed to wear one to get in this damn store to buy their stuff, and that's all they care about. 90% of the people have no idea, and they just stuff it in their pocket. They're filthy. You use a filthy old snotty bandana or anything will work. It covers up your face. People go in there with mosquito masks, and you can. I mean, I don't wear one. I don't wear a mask, but I did shave my beard. Remember, the first thing they said was, "Shave your beard." Remember?
I remember that. I didn't listen to that, obviously.
Yeah, I shaved my beard. I did do that, but this mask deal, no. And if you have a beard, the mask is even worse. I mean, because the stuff will stay right there in your beard. But if you want to, if anybody's interested in this whole Clinton Cash deal, you can read the book Clinton Cash, or you can just go and watch Charles Ortel. He's pretty funny. Him and Jason Goodman will crack some jokes in the meantime all the time. And there's 268 videos. You never run out of material here. You can watch them the rest of your life, probably. Okay, that's all I got to say, Mike. Thanks a lot. Bye.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. I'm on a busy stretch of street here, but there's a lull in the traffic. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. You're on the air.
Oh, okay. Hey, Michael, you said you were somewhat familiar with New York City, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're familiar with Times Square, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question to you is, what do you call a Times Square hustler on steroids? What do you call a Times Square? Times Square is notorious for hustlers. I used to know some of the hustlers. I drove cab in New York City for about 10 years, and I got to know a Times Square hustler very, very well. He was always rolling in dough and had expensive jewelry. He always told me he was so successful because people love to be fooled, and that's why he was so successful as a hustler. But what do you call a Times Square hustler when they're on steroids?
Well, please enlighten us.
Mr. President.
Oh,
Mr. President.
That's a groaner.
Yeah. Well, listen, let me ask you this. This whole thing, it just occurred to me that we're in the merry, merry month of October.
Yes,
now,
we are.
Is this whole thing with Trump and COVID-19 and up at the Walter Reed, whatever the heck the hospital is that he was in, the Army hospital there. What is it, Walter Reed or something like that?
Yes, Walter Reed.
Yeah. Anyways, is this the deep state? Is this the swamp and the deep state? Is this their idea of an October supply by any chance?
Well, I'm sure that Trump was surprised when he came down with COVID. And I keep getting emails from people pointing out that it seems like a lot of the GOP leadership are testing positive for COVID, but none of the Democrats. And they're kind of wondering why that might be. I don't know. Maybe the virus just doesn't like Democrats.
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of Democrats, Michael, Sloppy Joe Biden, Sloppy Joe outdid himself. He actually made this statement, Michael. Sloppy Joe says or asserts that he has forgotten more than President Trump will ever know. He's forgotten more than Trump will ever know.
Yes. I understand what he's trying to say, but in the current context of questions about his mental acuity, that was not a smart thing for him to say.
Oh, I know. So that anyway, Mike, I have to tell you, I made that up, but it's my feeble attempt at some subtle humor, you know?
So he didn't really say that. Okay, let's be clear.
No, but maybe he did, but it's probably something he would say, huh?
I don't know, but he's still reeling from that one about he wanting to see the young girls 4 years from now. That one kind of backflashed on him.
Well, speaking of that one, Michael, do you know why Sloppy Joe, his favorite place to go on summer vacation is Yellowstone National Park? That's his favorite place to go. Yeah, you want to know why?
Yes, please tell us why.
Well, because he loves to sniff the grizzly bears out in Yellowstone. During the night, he roams around through the forest sniffing the grizzly bears.
Okay.
Yeah, he loves to rub their fur and sniff them.
Anything else?
Yeah. There is something else, Mike. Donald Trump, he condemned the Ku Klux Klan, and he condemned white supremacists, but then he was asked about the Proud Boys, and I think this speaks volumes about Tricky Trump. When asked about the Proud Boys, he says, "I know very little about the Proud Boys, but I condemn them." He says he knows very little about them, but he condemns them. So my thoughts on that, Mike, I'm going to begin to refer to Tricky Trump now. Instead of Tricky Trump, he's President Proud Boy. He's Exhibit A of a Proud Boy. All he ever talks about is he's going to single-handedly make America great again. Great this, great that.
Well, that's to be expected. He's running for president. That's to be expected here. I kind of like Tricky Trump a lot better than President Proud Boy, to be very honest.
Yeah, but he's so tough. He's so proud. He's always boasting. He's so proud. Yeah, because for him to say that he knows very little about the Proud Boys, but he condemns them. Now listen, was it the Ku Klux Klan that attacked Waco? Was it the Ku Klux Klan that attacked up in Ruby Ridge, Randy Weaver and Jackie Weaver?
Yeah.
Was it the Ku Klux Klan that took down the Oklahoma City courthouse? I could go on and on. Hey, Trump, Tricky Trump, why don't you designate that damned FBI as a terrorist organization, huh? It wasn't the Ku Klux Klan, you race traitor.
They definitely have earned their spurs. Definitely.
Huh?
They've definitely earned their spurs. But, one of the reasons the FBI is untouchable, and this goes all the way back to J. Edgar Hoover, is they spy on all the politicians and they develop, files on their mistresses and their various sexual perversions and whatnot. So the FBI is able to basically blackmail the entire government. They even blackmailed President John F. Kennedy at one point. And that's why the FBI can do what they do and nobody can touch them.
Yeah, but it ties in with Marilyn Monroe's mysterious death and everything, but
they blackmailed him over this woman he was having an affair with who turned out to be a spy.
Okay, so but anyways, Mike, I'll close. You got wonderful callers, so I'll just close like this. From my perspective, I believe what we're seeing is a classic Hegelian operation.
Yes,
you put forth these creeps like Sloppy Joe and Kabbalah Kamala and everything, and it's just Hegelian. Then this makes Trump look like the only alternative, like Mr. Wonderful. It's just a Hegelian operation, and I'm going to go back to who you're voting for. I'll vote for Clear, but I'm not going to vote for either one of those freaks. Okay. So, with that, Mike, thanks for taking my call, and I look forward to. I hope I didn't offend Tommy Gun Tommy down there in Florida. But I just would say to Tommy, Tommy Gun Tommy. Remember what I said, that Times Square hustler told me that the reason he was so successful hustling people is because people love to be fooled. So,
Yes.
you know, I want Tommy to think about that, just to at least keep.
Well, it's not just hustlers, but professional magicians. That's the reason professional magicians do so well. The public loves to be fooled. And it's one of the first things you learn in magic school. Anyway, David, we're going to let you go. The phone lines are now open, 800-313-9443, and call on in and share your opinions and so forth. Meanwhile, getting back to the international news, the 65,000-ton Royal Navy aircraft carrier, the Queen Elizabeth, is at the center of the group, which is of this huge NATO force in the North Sea for war games. And it's a total of 9 ships, 15 fighter jets, 11 helicopters, and 3,000 personnel from Great Britain, the United States, and the Netherlands. The strike group, which the Navy has described as the largest and most powerful European-led maritime force in 20 years, has gathered for exercises in the North Sea. Protected by a ring of advanced destroyers, frigates, helicopters, and submarines, and equipped with 5th-generation fighters, HMS Queen Elizabeth is able to strike from the sea at a time and place of our choosing, and with our NATO allies at our side, we'll be ready to fight and win in the most demanding circumstances. Okay, well, here's my thought. I think that aircraft carriers and their carrier wings are as obsolete now for World War III as the battleship was in World War II. When World War II cranked up, naval doctrine was that aircraft carriers were nice to have, but the mainstay of naval combat was going to be the giant battleship. And of course, World War II proved that the battleships really were sitting ducks for the aircraft carriers. And I think in World War III, the aircraft carriers are going to be sitting ducks for intelligent, smart missiles here. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Joe, are you there? Okay, I guess we lost Joe in California. Getting on back to the news here. We were talking the other day about how the START treaty is set to expire in February 2021, and how Russia had said, let's just extend it the way it is now. It's our last remaining arms control treaty with Russia. And the Trump administration basically said, no, we've got all kinds of new conditions, and that basically stalled the talks. However, they have agreed to hold new talks about the nuclear arms control talks in Helsinki, Finland. And apparently this actually started yesterday, so good for them. Okay, looks like Joe in California is back. Joe, are you there?
Oh, yes. Hello, Mike. I got disconnected there.
Okay, no problem. I can hear you now, and you are on the air.
Mike, maybe you can enlighten me. I just was channel surfing. I see Biden's making a speech out of Gettysburg.
Yes.
Repeating what he's been saying all along, how racist the country is, how hateful, how we're all racists, we're all misogynists, we're all homophobes. First of all, I'd like to know why these people would want to govern such a country.
Okay.
It's such a hateful, racist
Got to put you on hold. Joe, I got to put you on hold. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Joe in California. And Joe, you were talking about the Democrats' gloom and doom.
Yes, I also failed to mention anti-Semitism also as well is another problem in this country. But I'm just wondering, Mike, I didn't really follow the events in Charlottesville. I think it was back in 2017.
Yes.
And that's very it's very ambiguous what happened there. I think that the police were told to stand down. Antifa was basically invited in, and they created an incident. But outside of what happened in Charlottesville, I can't think of any. I don't know. I'm at a loss. I can't recall any right-wing violence or white supremacist violence that's happened since then. We've had so many hoaxes that you've spotlighted, Jewish hoaxes where they painted swastikas I think on cars or on campuses that were later found out to be committed by Jewish people. And I don't know if you heard of the latest incident. That black woman, she claimed that three white men, I think she was parked next to them, stopped next to them at a red light, and they poured some sort of liquid on her and lit a match.
Fluid is what she said.
Right, and it basically turned out that it was all a hoax. She did it herself.
Yes.
So we hear so much about these hoax events, and of course the corporate media, the corporate media doesn't follow up. They just headline the original accusation, but then they don't follow up on the hoax that's been exposed. But I can't think of any. I mean, I can't think of any violence committed by right-wing extremists or white supremacists, if they exist. I'm sure, yes, there are some out there, but I can't. I'm at a loss. Can you enlighten me?
Well, I mean, the general tone of the corporate media and the Democratic politics these days is that white people are bad, they're racist, they're evil, they're violent, and we have to feel like all black people are victims.
Right. The same white people that elected Obama twice.
Yes.
It's funny, Mike, I don't want to make an issue of this, but this has been going on, and we know who controls the culture. This has been going on for decades. And, I'm a fan of like the late 60s, 1970s detective shows like Mannix, Cannon, Mannix and Cannon specifically. Hawaii Five-0, not as much in terms of what I'm going to say. But in Mannix and Cannon, especially Mannix, there is never a black criminal. Every black, and like Richie Allen, who I really enjoy listening to, he will say, oh, well, like back in the day, American TV in the 50s and 60s, 70s, the blacks were always gangsters and criminals. That's not true.
No.
So on these programs, the black person's always unjustly accused. Just watch. I invite anybody. Watch Mannix, watch Cannon. Never. All the criminals are white. They've been doing this. This has been an agenda since back in the 60s, maybe before that.
Okay, Joe, we got to let you go.
This message into people's minds.
Okay, Joe, we got to let you go. We got to take a break for station identification. Back with more phone calls after these few words. And welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And we're going to go to Layla in Canada. Hello, Layla. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Mike. I was just wondering, what are the sources of your the news that you read up front?
Well, it's
do you
basically
have direct sources. Do you have direct sources, or do you just take it off the internet?
I basically pull it from a variety of sources like Russia Today, Press TV, the Electronic Intifada, and I'll do a little bit of a rewrite, so I'm not just reading their stuff over the air, which is a tacky no-no.
Yeah, that was one of the things when I worked in the industry that bothered me. When I'd rip the wires in the morning and I'd look at the reports and I'd say, I wonder who fed the wire services, because they're feeding the rest of the news broadcasting or print circulation outlets. And that always bothered me. There was no name on them. And we know now, or at least I know, I've looked back in history and found that a lot of the international wire services were staffed by intelligence agencies or agents who were very often double agents, but they were just feeding the propaganda. So I'm very wary of taking anything off the internet unless it has a name attached to it so I can know the agenda of the person who fed that information into the wire feed. But anyway.
Well, if there's a primary source here, like Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, I mentioned his name earlier in the program.
I use him too. Yeah, I've sent his comments to other people to enlighten them. But he's a local guy, and we know who he is. We know his background. He's very open about who he is, who he's worked for, and so it's easy to extrapolate what his agenda might be. And I tend to trust his observations. But yes, the International Wire Service, Electronic Intifada, highly biased. RT, very likely highly biased, and on and on. So
No, I would disagree
no
on Russia
longer,
Today.
go to the internet.
They seem to be pretty fair and balanced, and they're definitely one of my go-to sources. Electronic Intifada, yes, of course it's biased. It's very much biased in favor of the Palestinian cause, but you know that going in.
Yes, well, of course. I mean, my being a Palestinian or from that area, well, actually, I am a Palestinian because I was born in the only time that a Palestine existed under the British mandate, and I had Palestinian citizenship, something that no one else can actually say either prior to or subsequent to the British mandate. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask is, I was a little upset yesterday. It's the reason I stopped calling in for months. I can listen to other people call in, and like the guy who feeds you information, you seem to think it's true, and then he tells you that's not true, that was just a joke. And you tolerate him, and he goes
that's
on
a
and
little
on.
annoying.
It's very annoying, especially when yesterday, when I was talking about Netanyahu and riots, and then you said, well, Netanyahu is not able to control, he allows the riots, he's not able to control them. Then you cut me off before allowing me to finish the thought that I was trying to make, the point that I was trying to illustrate. Netanyahu tolerates riots from the Israelis. It is the Palestinians, or those who have now become the group called Palestinians, that he shoots down and torments with electrical blasts, sound waves, poisonous gases, all manner of things. So yes, he needs to have riots going out over the international media so he can have some verification that he's, quote, a democracy where he tolerates riots, but they are very controlled riots. That is not really, and that wasn't fair for you to cut me off like that. You've done it repeatedly.
Well,
I'll make a point.
I cut you off.
Please.
I cut you off when we ran out of time.
Okay, you could have held me over. Or at
All
least
right,
let me make the point
over.
that a lot of the police in North America used to be very, very good servants to their communities. In the 1980s and 90s, they were taken to Israel for training on how to control riots.
Yes.
And that was the other point I was trying to make. So that police themselves have been, and again, it's primarily because of the United Nations and their, what was their special cities that came out under Loretta Lynch when she was the AG for under Obama. They had this, it was all, even beyond Agenda 21, it was far beyond that. But you know, it's very discouraging. I feel like a fool. Every time that happens, I make a point, you contradict me, then cut me off, and I say, damn, I'll never call in again. I end up looking like a blathering idiot. Now, someone yesterday, I had, asked what was my opinion on what should be done with regard to the vaccinations. I thought he made some wonderful points. What I would add to what he said is that we are now called a mobocracy. And we're also almost in a state of nihilism, which of course comes from the word annihilate. And one of the best sources for describing what nihilism is Mikhail Bakunin, who was a rabid opponent of Karl Marx. So look him up, Bakunin. His comments are absolutely marvelous. But we are in a state of almost nihilism, more than simply fascism. It's far more dangerous and far more destructive to the whole. Anyway, I think I've made my point. As in response to, I think it was Mitchell from Tennessee, in response to his question, I can't advise anybody else. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the expertise. The reason I listen to your show or other shows is because I'm hoping somebody else does have a proposal. However, what I can say is that on my own behalf, if a vaccine becomes mandatory, I am absolutely going to refuse. They will have to prove that they own my body, not simply pass legislation saying that everybody has to do it. If they are going to advocate the right of a woman to control her body in order to slaughter a helpless fetus, then they also have to prove that they own my body, that I am chattel or cattle, whichever they want to classify me as, and then state, we're going to inoculate you the same as we do with chickens or cows or any other animal that's in our paddocks or in our barns. So unless they can provide a law reversing human rights declarations and foundations, they're going to have to prove that they own my body and I do not. They cannot inject me with something that I do not consent to, where they have not revealed every single element within it. And besides, the last vaccine I had was the smallpox vaccine, which outrageously, I was given a quadruple dose when I was only an 8 or 10-month-old baby. So obviously
Yes.
I came down with the lesser version of smallpox. Since then, I have had no vaccines, and I'm now 75 years old. Not one single vaccination have I had since then. And I have not been to my doctor's office or in 7 years. I have not been in a hospital since 1994 for a minor procedure that did not resolve the issue that was supposed to be resolved. And in 1994, I said, that's it. Never again will I walk into one of these filthy institutions that is really just a breeding ground for pathogens. So I've vented.
Yes.
Thank you for the courtesy of letting me have my say. And as I said, I can't speak for other people, but I personally feel that I own my body, male or female. The same principle of women being
Yes.
the ones who can determine what happens to their bodies applies to men as well. If they don't want a vaccine, they have the right under all laws that exist both internationally and I think within the U.S. So best wishes to everyone. Take care, Mike. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. And, I avoid vaccines, but some years ago when I had my pneumonia, they gave me a bunch of shots. I'm not even sure what they were. And there's one doctor I've been talking to who thinks this autoimmune disorder I'm dealing with may have been a vaccine adverse reaction here. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here. Mitchell in Memphis, your ears must be burning after Layla's call. What's on your mind today?
I'd like to thank Layla. That was very honest of her, very truthful. She maintained she didn't have solutions, but she gave a very good one. Maybe it's time for we the people to engage in a little lawfare, class action lawfare. Just move it in the other direction, go after them. Anyway, I appreciate that. Speaking also to Layla's comments, she was talking about the problem of we the people don't have ability to get absolute truth.
Yes.
Which begs the question, I think in 2010, Jesse Ventura was being interviewed by Piers Morgan. I don't know what Jesse was using he was plugging his book. I don't know what his sources were, but he claimed that 16 million times the government was asked a question about what they were doing or such. They said, we can't tell you, top secret.
Yes.
So even if 1/10 of what Jesse was saying was true, we still have a problem. And it begs the question, how can we be an informed electorate if there's no way to know where the truth is? Everybody knows that you can't depend on what's going to happen in this election. I'm just dreading it. I ride a bicycle all over Memphis, Tennessee, and I know after that election, I've got to lay low for probably a week because I could get shot.
Yes.
Just because of the results of that election. Mike, I want to move over to something you said real quick. You were talking about the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Thank you, Layla, by the way. You were talking about the Supreme Court. I pulled this down real quick. The number of justices on the Supreme Court changed 6 times before settling at the present total of 9 in 1869. I went to the census. I think they do it every 10 years or so, but the 1860. Let's go to 1860 census in the United States of America. It was composed of 31 million people. That's basically for each Supreme Court, 9 Supreme Court justices. So each Supreme Court justice, if you will represent 3.49 million people. In 2019, the total population is composed of 328 million individuals. Divided by 9 gets you to 36 million. So, each Supreme Court judge would represent 36 million people. So it does look like that we could stand to use more Supreme Court justices.
Well, there's a flaw in your argument. There's a flaw in your argument in that Supreme Court justices don't represent the people. They represent the Constitution.
I'm using the word not as a representative, like in a legislative body. I was just saying for every, is it giving the Supreme Court a systemic irrigation of power type of thing, or are they getting more and more power because the population is getting bigger? Is each individual judge gaining more and more power because of the increase of the size of the population?
I don't think the two are related. I think the court has gained more power because of their tendency to legislate from the bench, which I'm grateful to see that Amy Coney Barrett really doesn't support that, both in her statements and in her past rulings.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that in 1860, if they felt the need to have 9 Supreme Court justices for 31 million people, would it stand to reason that perhaps we could use some more for 328 million people?
Well, I disagree.
Let me say this, Mike. I understand.
The reason they went to 9 Supreme Court justices is previously they'd had 8, which kept locking up 4 and 4 split decisions. And so they decided we've got to have an odd number, with somebody who's going to break the tie. And that's why it's been 9 ever since. Okay. Last thing I'll say on this topic, if I understand whichever party is not in, if you will, the catbird position, they don't want to do anything. It's like obviously the Republicans don't want to do anything about it now because they're in a position to appoint the new seats. What if, would you agree to the idea of increasing the size of the Supreme Court, but we say that 10 years from this point, it will increase to 17 Supreme Court justices? Would you like that idea? No, I don't like that idea. I don't think we need more than 9 Supreme Court justices. There's again, they're not representative of the population. They're representative of the Constitution and the rule of law, and that's pretty much stayed stable. Okay, so you're set on 9. I'm set on 9. Good deal. Let's move over to something you talked about, a story that piqued my interest. I'm going to read something here, a summary, Upstander Project. It says, the Doctrine of Discovery established a spiritual, political, and legal justification for colonization and seizure of land not inherited by Christians. It had been invoked since Pope Alexander VI issued the papal bull, so we're talking about 1493. Yeah, I remember Alexander VI. Right, and so unfortunately, Thomas Jefferson looks like he gets a bad mark here. It says here in 1792, United States Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson declared that the doctrine of discovery would extend from Europe to the infant United States as U.S. government. The doctrine and its legacy continue to influence American imperialism and treatment of indigenous peoples. Now, there's a guy out named Mark Charles who speaks a lot about this. Heard him on a TED Talk. He's out there in the Southwest. And this Doctrine of Discovery stuff, I can't remember, but it seems like there was a story a while back that you did about maybe Oklahoma where some indigenous people were getting some land back or something. I don't know. Yeah. I can't remember. But I wanted to bring this up. Yesterday, you did a story about the military base. Let me go to my notes here. I got the Lunex project conceptualized 1958. Let's see. They're talking about a military base on the moon. Now, Everybody argues about did we go to the moon or did we not go to the moon? I don't want to go there. I don't argue about it. Do what? I know your position. I don't argue about it. I worked on Apollo 12 post-mission. So there it is. So what I'm saying, though, there is no dispute about the fact that we were shown a flag on the moon. Now, the way the Doctrine of Discovery works, back then it was the big four, I guess, Portugal, Spain, France, and Britain or whatever. And they were told, you go to these new lands and you plant a flag, it's yours. Well, so what about the people that live there? Don't worry. They're heretics. They don't matter. Well, we're lucky there. There's nobody living on the moon, although China's probe on the backside of the moon successfully planted and grew some corn plants and other seeds. And so technically, China just colonized the moon. Well, that's what I was alluding to. Is this putting flags on the moon just continuation of this Doctrine of Discovery? We found it first, and it's all ours. I mean, I've always had a problem in the United States of America, a government claiming 2.4 billion acres of land. That just bothers me that I can't go anywhere in this country and live for any length of time without having to pay a damn property tax. And it's getting we do have people living here in this country without paying property tax. It's called the homeless. Yes. So it's happening anyway. And there is a hierarchy. There is a system of crude set of rules and understandings along these lines in a place called Slab City. So it's not just crazy chaos and mayhem in Slab City. It's tough living. The homeless community, an old abandoned Air Force base, but they do have some rules. But anyway, I was just curious if this planting of the flag business was, are these people that want to gain territory for themselves, are they doing it on the moon and other planets now? Well,
Anyway,
to be very, very honest, there are certain practical limitations to having a military base on the moon. Maybe for optical telescopes and radio intercept stations, that might be acceptable if you can ignore the 1.2 second delay for the signals to get from Earth to the moon and back to Earth again. But certainly that far out, being able to launch any kind of munitions, it's going to be very easy to intercept them. There are, in fact, treaties against the weaponization of space. Unfortunately, as has been the U.S. history, they've walked away from them. They certainly did with the Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, where they started looking at putting weapons in space. We still don't know what that robotic space shuttle is doing up there in orbit. And we're seeing more and more anti-satellite weapons and, of course, the new Space Force. So as far as the moon is concerned, you know, it's not like the United States could enforce its dominion over our satellite.
Okay, that's interesting, Mike. The last thing I'd like to say, I called John Statmiller's show. I think he kind of called me out. He was angry about some things I've been saying. However, we talked on the phone. I had a conversation with him. He got very angry at me and told me not to call his show again. At the end of his show, he had a change of heart and invited me back. So to you, John Statmiller, I would like to continue our conversation. I've thought about some things. I might make some proposals, some ideas to you if you would like. I would like to call back the next couple of days, and I would like to talk to you some more, John. But at any rate, Mike, thank you, and thank you, Layla. I'm going to get off the phone now. Thanks.
All right, thanks an awful lot here, and we got a bunch more phone calls waiting, but we're coming up on a commercial break, so I'm going to put the calls off until after that. Venezuela has won a British court decision in the battle to get its gold back, and this is Maduro's government rather than the so-called alternate government of Juan Guaido. The big question is, does the Bank of England actually have the gold? We talked about that in America's Book of Secrets. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials, back with more phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and we are going to go back to the phones to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yes, hello.
Okay.
Good day. Can you hear me?
There you are. I can hear you. You're on the air.
First, Mike, I just want to send my condolences to Eddie Van Halen's family.
Yes.
The Van, one of the great guitar players of all time. I don't know if you heard.
Yes, I heard.
Yeah, I would rate him in the top 5 as a great guitarist, that's for sure. He was a super guitarist.
Okay, we're having trouble hearing you again. Can you go back to the headset and off the speakerphone?
Hold on a minute, Mike.
Okay, are you there?
Hear you now?
Try saying something. Hello? Yeah, I think we lost Tom. Okay, he dropped. All right, so let's go to Joe in Nome. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I sent you a letter. I don't know if you might have received it yet, but it should have been there. Some time ago, I promised to send you a video of World Trade Center 7 collapse.
Yes.
I put it on a SD card, micro SD chip, along with $20, and wrapped it in a silver foil chip bag.
Yeah.
At any rate,
I think I may actually have that here. Let's see. Yeah, there's the micro SD card. I just haven't looked at it yet.
Okay. Well, now that you got it, and hopefully Google doesn't interrupt the feed here, your feed. But the thing about the video, there's a couple other videos on there too. It's a flash video.
Yes.
Which is kind of antiquated. I hope you can read it.
Yes.
I use Linux to put it on there. At any rate, the thing I wanted to say about the video is it well, when it was first uploaded, there was some talk about, well, how come they reversed the picture? But that isn't what happened. What happened was, number one, it was up close and personal, and it was the other side of the building. And you can see the flashes in the windows when the penthouse collapsed. And you can hear them. And,
well, I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah. And they got that little short clip of Giuliani saying, well, we decided to pull it.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a really short video, and being that it's flash video, I was originally intending on putting them on data CDs and handing them out. But by the time I got around it, well, my house burned down. I moved to Nome. Blah, 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 blah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, but I was in front of the Homer City Council about 9/11 also. So I'm pretty sure that has something to do with my house burning down on my third day on vacation. But anyway, I swore I'd never buy land in any city ever again, period. End of story. I do have 3.5 acres out in outside Dillingham, which is unincorporated. So there's no taxes on that. But at any rate, I hope you enjoy some of the other videos on there too, and a couple of documents. I think they're PDFs.
Well, I'll definitely be taking a look at that.
Super. I'm glad you got it. And let's hope things calm down over there in Nagorno-Karabakh.
I certainly hope so. I mean, it's a flashpoint that could easily turn into World War III. Definitely.
I kind of brought up that topic a while back in relation to Noah's Ark, but it's that same.
Well, we've got that Ark encounter over here a little ways over. Maybe we can commandeer that.
Okay, but yeah, what Russia did to the Caspian Sea is an ecological horror. That's for sure. But Nagorno-Karabakh is a fight over oil also.
Joe, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Michael. I can empathize with Layla because last week you allowed this guy from Memphis to come on here and make these very specious arguments. And one of them was how myself and another caller take up so much time, yet I just watched this guy take up 15 minutes about nonsense. And, he complained he was talking about John Stadtmiller. I listened to John's show, and John excoriated. Told him never call his show again. I never heard the part where John said, "Oh yeah, come on, call back."
But they kissed and made up later. So Miles, he'll be calling back into John's show.
Well, that's fine. That's good. But I could appreciate what Layla had said. Because I felt it was unfair if somebody not only said, made commentary, but used what I feel was, derogatory language. I mean, it was a direct attack, calling people names. That doesn't happen very often on any of these shows. And I think that was, really interesting. And then, he comes on today, and he took a real good amount of time and didn't think twice about it. But anyway, Michael, keep up the great show. You're always having a good show anyway, with or without anybody else. And have a great day.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to move to Al in West Virginia. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Hey, first of all, I'd like to listen on the phone because if I get off the phone, I won't be able to hear what your answer is. I have a couple questions. Well, one's a statement. Didn't the Russians, when they tried to go to the moon or something there, they didn't they their astronauts burn up in space because of the Van Allen belt?
No.
Radiation. And then secondly, I was wondering, how did we get past?
There were rumors that in the early days of the Russian space program that they had a couple of failures, and because they didn't announce space missions until they had completed successfully, there were radio operators in Europe who insisted that they had heard Russian orbiting spacecraft with cosmonauts on board preceding Yuri Gagarin, but they didn't make it safely back to Earth. That's where that story came from. Now, the Van Allen belts are an intense area of radiation discovered by Van Allen, obviously. And for everybody to go through that, to go to the moon or the outer solar system, it's just, it's a risk you take. It's like taking a couple of chest x-rays. And it's like when you fly on a passenger jet, because when you're 30,000 feet above the ground, you're actually getting more radiation from space than you would standing on the ground. And it's just a risk you accept to be able to take that trip. And the same was true of the astronauts who went to the moon. Even though there's been a study, and as a matter of fact, I'm posting that story right now, where a lot of the astronauts suffered cancers and heart problems because of that exposure to radiation. And radiation on the moon's surface is apparently 200 times what it is here on Earth, because they lack the atmosphere to protect them, the magnetosphere like we have here. So, yeah, it's, space travel is hazardous. But if you're going to go on out there, it's a risk that you take. Prior to the Challenger disaster, there had been burn-throughs on the SRBs that had concerned the astronauts, but they continued flying because it was a risk they were willing to take to get into space.
Okay. Did I hear you right a little bit ago when you said that did you say the Chinese have been to the backside of the moon and actually grown corn?
Yeah, they have a lander on the backside of the moon, and they have a second satellite that relays data and information from their little lander back to China. And the reason for having the lander on the backside is that astronomers have determined that there are significant differences in the regolith from the backside to the front side, and they think it may have something to do with how the moon was formed originally.
What about for the sunlight to grow the corn?
Well,
Isn't
I
that
think
supposed to be the dark side of the moon or something?
Well, it's only dark half of the month. And in this case, the Chinese lander had sort of its own little dome to grow things in, because they had to have atmosphere and light and water and all kinds of things that you normally don't find on the moon. But like I said, they grew crops on the moon, and technically it means they've colonized the moon.
Huh. All righty. Well, I guess you have pretty significant evidence of that or something other than, I'm sure it's just you're going by what they told you, but I never heard anything like that before. That's amazing to me.
Well, if you've been following, the technical news reporting, China's not shy about talking about what they're doing. And, there's a lot of spacecraft around the moon these days here. And it's becoming a very, very busy place, which I think is a very, very good thing, except for the part about building military bases on it.
Okay, well, I'll let you go, Michael. Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Nick in Florida. Hello, Nick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Hey, man, I've been listening to you for a long time. I know you've read some Stendhal, that one book, The Red and the Black, or The Black and the Red, I think it was. There's a line in there that said, there's a moment that creates Napoleons, and I just wanted to say that back in '89, I was attacked and felonized by the Martin County USA Sheriff's Department for nothing, and there's still no property damage or life and limb damage or anything, but they wanted to take away all my rights and stuff. So it's pretty cold-blooded what they've been doing, and it goes back to the nihilism thing that Layla brought up.
Yes.
And yeah, it's hand in hand with Marxism and stuff, and it reminds me of Joe Biden the other night in the debates with his here's the deal, oh shut up, here's the deal, it reminds me of these jackbooted thugs that we've been having keeping law and order here in America for a while now. I don't think that's going to fly forever. So wanted to throw that out there. It's not too hard to find out who's behind this. You go do a quick Google search for dual citizens running the government, and you'll see it all right there. Dual citizens, Israel, USA, Israel, USA, Israel, USA. So, I mean, they got a lot of balls to pull this off on our generation. As far as the blacks go, they've been such a wonderful gift to our country, with the music and everything. God bless them, And the only reason they really got hurt, in my opinion, in modern times, it was under Johnson with his Great Society.
Yes.
And yes,
yeah,
sir,
but on the other hand, Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah. Well, the cities were burning. There's no doubt about that. We have to look into the manipulation of that. But then it's the way that it was dealt with. Like, it's my understanding the Black Panthers were bringing breakfasts and lunches to the poor kids in town, right?
That's how they started. They provided breakfast to the poor kids, and they wanted local control of the school curriculum. And then the FBI infiltrated them and turned them into this militant group. And they had all this propaganda out there, like the Black Panther coloring book, which was produced by the FBI and had nothing to do with the Black Panthers. But it definitely caused white America to stop listening.
Okay. So divide and conquer kind of thing?
Yeah, well, very much so.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Well, here's a little thing on the side here real quick. The cop pulls over a young couple at the side of the road one night, and the guy rolls down the windows, and it's Anthony Weiner. He's got a young lady in the seat next to him, and he's whittling on a piece of wood. She's doing some knitting, And he says, "Well, how old are you, sir?" He says, "Oh, 35." And he says, "Well, how old's the young lady?" And he says, "Oh, it should be 18 in 5 minutes and 20 seconds."
Okay.
That's not funny. Okay.
That's your joke for the day.
That's the joke for the day, yeah. That was a joke, people. In quotes. Like, for a young person getting into coding and computers and stuff, what would be one of the best choices to get into? It would be PHP or Python, or, for a real novice beginner.
Well, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to develop dynamic websites, then PHP is a must. MySQL and obviously HTML, to connect it all together, and knowing how the Apache server works would probably work. If you want to do programming for industry or science and technology, believe it or not, the original vanilla C programming language is still #1.
Vanilla feed?
Kernighan and Ritchie C.
Okay. Kernighan and C, right?
Kernighan and Ritchie. They developed the original C language, and it's spun off to C++ and C# and the rest of it, which are out there but not as popular as plain old vanilla C, which is still my language of choice.
I see. Okay, Michael, that's why I'm asking you, buddy. All right, man. Well, God bless everybody, and God bless America. Send the money into RBN. See you later.
All right, thanks an awful lot here, and we're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Welcome back to the show. I guess we had some kind of a gremlin take your phone line out, and what's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, real quickly, I got to get going in a minute, but I just want to say, like I said, Eddie Van Halen was a great guitarist, really sad loss in the rock and roll world, and it's funny, they came out today with Stairway to Heaven, that Led Zeppelin won that copyright for Stairway to Heaven, and Eddie passed, so that's pretty heavy on a lot of guys like me, because I used to love the VH and all that, But getting back to what I want to talk about now is Dave gave me a name. He called me. I like the first name I have. I'm an AK-47. Now I'm what do you call me? A Thompson machine gun. But I want to tell Depth Charge Dave. Yeah,
Okay.
he's depth charge. We're gonna start him calling. I like calling him depth charge Dave.
Okay.
I want
think I'd like to like tamp down this nicknames and pejoratives of each other.
It's
before it really
in a
gets
good way.
going.
It's not a harm. I'm not trying to be harmful. I can call him a Claymore mine or whatever. I'm not. It's just in a fun way. I'm not trying to be sarcastic about it. But yeah, Mike, what I was wanting to tell him is, he's bashing on Trump, but he's in a blue state. I mean, they're ballistic in these blue states. I mean, I wish Dave would call in about Dick Blumenthal. Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, yeah, we got Trump, but you know what? Let's talk about some of these New England politicians that come out of New England. Schmucky Schumer, and you got some real winners. AOC. I mean, look where these people are coming out of these states. So, it's one thing to bash Trump because he is the president, but these politicians we got, these people vote for in these New England states is unbelievable. It's terrifying if you think about it. And Mike, I know what's going to end up happening with this election. You're going to steal the election, like you've been saying for months, with the mail-in ballot. There's no question about it. Even here in Florida, my brother said in Ocala, they had people triple voting. I mean, they caught people up there, like 7 people triple voting. You don't hear that on the media, do you, Mike?
No, you don't. The media is still trying to sell the idea that the elections are fair, honest, and transparent. And, every time there's an election and we catch lots of fraud going on, they'll come out and say, well, yes, there was fraud, but it doesn't change the final outcome, which is a totally unsupportable statement because they can't know that all the fraud has been found.
Yes, that's right, Mike. And, and speaking of New England states, look at this Dick Blumenthal lying to everybody who's a Vietnam War hero. The guy never was in Vietnam, and he's never stepped foot in Vietnam, and they still elect this guy. Now, one more thing, Mike, and I'll let you go because I know you got another caller, maybe real quick. These masks, I don't know why Trump is not wearing these plastic face shields, because now they're saying here in South Florida, they're figuring out that the coronavirus is such a bad thing, it's coming through the eyeballs. So I think Trump should have one of those flip-down facial shields. The mask ain't doing nothing, Mike. The masks are not helping. That's for your caller in Jersey. I can see if they wore a face shield to cover your eyes, your nose, and your mouth.
Very, very good point. For Trump, our local supermarket is starting to sell those transparent face shields.
I called all day, Mike.
I'm not sure that they're very good.
Mike, I called Washington all day. I called the White House, and I left a message that they need to put the face shields on, because the face shields, you can still see the face. You can still see the person speaking. You can still see the whole facial features of a person. With the mask, it's like a bandito. You look like a bandit, like you're going to rob a bank. No, Trump should have face shields. All these people should have face shields with some kind of, I don't know if they put a windshield wiper or some kind of insecticide to kill the germ. I don't know what to tell you. But just put at least a face shield on. They haven't done that. I understand it. They have these new ones that you can flip them up. And that's what Trump should be wearing right now. A face shield, because they already said it's coming through the eyes. And as far as one more thing, Mike, I want to know, all these guys that are bashing Trump, why one of these guys, and one our caller from Boston, why doesn't he start calling out the Chinese for bringing this Wuhan virus here? Because I don't believe the United States made this virus to kill their own people. And I don't think Donald Trump would ever do that, because he had the greatest economies those countries had in 50 years. Why would he want to sabotage his own economy with a virus that he was not created in the United States? It was created in Wuhan, China. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a lady on Tucker tonight saying this virus was to cut their population down in China, because they have 1.4 billion over there, Mike. Who's kidding who? They're way overpopulated in India and China.
Yes.
They have 100 million more men and women. So that's all I got to say, Mike. Have a great day. Thank you for taking my call. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you very much.
Eddie Van Halen. I know he was a great guitarist.
Yes, he was. And we're going to switch over to W in Texas. And W, I may have to take you through the last commercial break. What's on your mind?
Okay. Two quick questions. One, what do you think about mining on the moon? I think it's a bad idea personally, but I want to know your opinion, because I would think that, mining would, have the moon affects things on the earth like tides and even people. I'm just wondering, what do you think about mining on the moon?
I don't think they're going to mine enough on the moon to seriously disrupt the tides. The question is, what can we find there? And of course, that's one of the things that a permanent base on the moon would be able to look for, is go on out and do some old-fashioned prospecting.
Okay, I was just thinking like the type of things I see like in West Virginia, when they doing the mountaintop removal, that type of thing would have an issue, but I don't know. But my real comment was the whole thing with Trump and the recovery. The fact that he didn't use hydroxychloroquine is really slap in the face to America's frontline doctors, because they actually spoke with Pence And even the lady, her name is Simone Gold. She's the leader. She even like tweeted. She said that Trump retweeted her tweet regarding, hydroxychloroquine. So it's a real slap in the face. And the other thing about that is that remdesivir, these drugs that he's touting as coming from God, they cost $3,000 when hydroxychloroquine protocol is like $20. Like, it doesn't make sense. So the public can't get.
Like I said, follow the money. Follow the money. Okay, W, I got to put you on hold.
Yeah.
Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after this commercial break. Welcome back to our show. Pardon me. Last segment of our program today. We're talking with W in Texas, and we're talking about Trump. So, W, just sort of pick up where you left off.
All right, I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible. Mike, at the end of the day, this is we're literally on the cusp of a digital high-tech tyranny. You know this, I know this, a lot of people know this, and the reason for this is because these vaccines, this warp speed vaccine that they're pushing, vaccines take 10 to 8 years typically to be implemented. They're talking about a warp speed, which is an oxymoron, Mike. A year to make a vaccine with no animal testing or safety trials. And on top of that, the vaccine.
Well, that's what they do with the flu vaccine. They make a new flu vaccine every year.
Well, but this is a brand new type of virus, though, Mike. But not only that, the things that they're adding into these vaccines, like the Moderna, that has the genetically modifying element to it, or they're talking about adding other things that we don't need into our body. So ultimately, the reason why they can push these vaccines like this is because it says in the law or the regulation that if there is no type of available treatment, then they can push these vaccines out. And that's why they are discrediting hydroxychloroquine and that whole protocol, is because they're trying to make it seem like there's no hope. That's why the people think there's no hope and that we have to get on ventilators and all this other stuff, because they have to discredit a treatment. And
well, Trump just got that all down. I mean, everybody's looking at Trump back at work after just 4 days, and they're saying this COVID-19 is, not that big of a scary deal that it was made out to be.
That's true, but at the same time, he's pushing $3,000 medicine that we don't need, and it's experimental and all this type. And actually, the other thing about remdesivir, Mike, it's actually for late stage. It's not for early stage patients. Hydroxychloroquine is designed for early stage patients, and they keep messing around and trying to trick the people into thinking nothing exists. And I'm going to end with this. Dale Bigtree, if you go to thehighwire.com, he had a constitutional rally in Austin, Texas, and at the very end, he had America's frontline doctors, Simone Gold, Stella Emanuel, Dr. Urso, Tim Reed. He has them at the end, again, just clarifying to the folks, it works. It's not that complicated, Mike. And it's just crazy. People don't get it, and they're just being fooled. And it's crazy, man. We're going into a high-tech tyranny. If people don't understand, I don't know what else to say, man. That's it. Thank you.
Well, I keep thinking back to 1976 and the swine flu outbreak and the mandatory vaccination campaign, and they had to call it off after it was about 1 quarter through, when they discovered the vaccine was killing 50 times as many people as the flu itself. And so that's an object lesson we all need to keep in mind, which is why I'm certainly not going to be the first in line to get any new vaccine that's coming down the path here. I want to wait and see what it does to other people first. Okay?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Oh, and let me end with this, Mike. Look, Fauci, it took him 6 months to mention boosting our immune systems, Mike. We had people in the alternative media talking about quinine, vitamin C, vitamin D3 back in March and February, but it took this official person with all this experience to tell the public to boost your immune system, Mike. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. All right, W, I got to let you go. We got to basically end the show and get on out of here. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to spread the word of RBN, spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. Hopefully we'll get our YouTube fixed tomorrow. So we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.